Hey, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for coming out to this dedication ceremony. I'm Mayor Brian Bleasy, and I'm honored to be here. We're going to start today's ceremony with a presentation of the colors by the American Legion. Gentlemen. Thank you. By dedicating this city park as the Mike Seversen Memorial Overlook Park, we honor a person who put others before himself in all aspects of his life. While dedicated in the memory of an individual who inspires us, this dedication also recognizes the contributions being made daily by all whom serve our community, our volunteer firefighters, our first responders, our law enforcement officers, our servicemen and women, our elected officials, our educators, and those citizens participating as volunteers in all kinds of activities and in all aspects of government committees, commissions, and boards. I knew Mike, but I did not know him well. I regret not taking more time to know a neighbor and to appreciate his experience and contributions before his passing. When I visit this park and see this memorial, Mike's story will remind me to take time to know and appreciate others and to put service to others first, like Mike did. Now, let me introduce others who knew Mike well. Mr. Mark Seversen, Mike's brother.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you to you and to the City Council and so many of you that made this happen. It is an honor to us as siblings of Mike and to those who are friends to Mike for this day to actually come. So I guess the Sheriff's Department got together and they said, I know Mark can say something. So I'm up here just saying a couple of words. But on behalf of my sisters, Jody and Jane, I want to thank you for so much of what you've done to help us. I want to just say a couple of things about Mike. Many of you knew him, some very, very well, and others as an acquaintance. There were really three influences in Mike's life that influenced the kind of person he was. The first was he lived open-handed in his relationship with Christ. Really was amazing to me. There was just a sense of, God, you're in charge, I'm not, that actually continued on even after his injury. We saw God-graced character in his life. There's so many stories of people go through trauma like that, and there's stories of bitterness and of despair, of retreat. And yet in Mike's life, we saw humor, we saw continued care and regard for others, we saw patience. It was just really unbelievable to me that in a life like that, we could see character like that. And Mike would just point directly to God's grace in his life. But there was another influence, and that was his family. And I'd love to say it was me and my sisters, but it really wasn't. It was really his mom and his dad who just loved him and cared for him. Our mom and dad and their relentless love for Mike and their relentless hope for Mike and for his life. But then there was this third area of influence that shaped who he was, and it is this place. First of all, you just notice the beauty of this place and wonder at this created magnificent creation. And Mike was influenced by that. He was an outdoors person. He loved being outside. He loved to fish and hunt and ski and all of that. But it was more than the geography. These three parts of his life, the third one, was more than the geography. Mike actually was encouraged to settle in Denver when he was in rehab. When he was out there, the facilities were helpful for people who were quadriplegics. The care was a close proximity to him. And there are a number of people that said to Mike, Mike, you should just stay out here in Denver. And you actually look at the mountains and you say, okay, I'm great with that. But Mike, it didn't take Mike more than a couple of minutes. The decision was easy for him. He chose here. He chose St. Croix, and it wasn't the geography. He chose you, and he chose this place, and he chose so many more people that have been a part of his life and cared for him and encouraged him. The people of this place invested in Mike as a kid. The people of this community invested in Mike as a young man. So many of you invested in Mike as a friend, and it came so easy to you, to the people in his life, to be exactly what Mike needed. And it shaped him. Some of you visited him in Colorado during rehab. Just parades of people that would come out and talk about a community that was still cheering for him and hoping and longing to see him again. And then you were there when he came home the first time. You were all along the street on the way into town for Mike as they wheeled him out in front of the fire station. And you were there when he came home the last time. You included him. You made him a part of your life. You were family to him. This community exhibited a natural generosity of life, and it poured out into Mike's life. Anything that Mike gave back was a result of so much of what you gave to him and to our family. So this dedication marks much more than Mike's life and his sacrifice. It actually says something about this place. It actually says something about this community. It actually says something about you. While this place may be marked by Mike's name, Mike's life was marked by this place. We recount Mike's life and we exclaim, I can't believe he did that. But there's something beyond that I want to say. I can't believe you did that. Because whatever Mike became was shaped so much more by all of you and all of those that have been a part of this place. There's so many ways you cared for Mike. This evening, we as his family simply want to say thank you. You have generously honored Mike's name. Our prayer is that many will visit this place and learn something of his story, and that it would encourage him and perhaps inspire them. And then our prayer is this, that some long-timer will tap that person who's reading the plaque over there on the shoulder and then say, we had a part in that. Yep, we all did that. Thank you for everything you did for Mike and for our family.
Thank you, Mark. It was very elegant. Our next speaker is Chief Aaron Murphy. Now, the chief doesn't really want to say too much, but he's actually very elegant in his own way, and he's our A player here in St. Croix Falls.
Thank you. I just have a little bit to add to what Mark said. You know, Mike was a compassionate person. He was pretty compassionate about this town and his chosen profession. Even after he was wounded, it seemed like he never slowed. It just gave him more strength, and he was really an inspiration to a lot of us. To the point that really for over 20 years, any new officer trained in this area got to know Mike. It was just part of the training process. And until you met Mike, talked with Mike, and knew his story, the training wasn't done. I think we're lucky here to have Mike's legacy. He's just a person that this community can be proud of. And his story will continue. It continues with the markers here that we're going to unveil today. In law enforcement, he was a brother to us. He's one of ours, but he's just part of the community. And I miss him. I miss spending time with him and talking with him. But his story will live on here.
Our next speaker is Fire Chief Mike Dorsey.
So Mike was one of those guys that you could see walking down the street and you just knew that he was a good guy. Mike held the position of lieutenant on the fire department when I joined the fire department, so he was an automatic role model to me. He always answered any question I had, was always there to assist me in training and encourage us. So after Mike was injured, it was our turn to help encourage him. Right around this time, bumper sticker campaign came out that said attitude is everything. And it was Mike teaching us that attitude is everything. When Mike came to town, he was involved in various committees and groups, again, teaching us and leading by example. That's all I got. Thanks.
Next, we have a donation from the Sportsman Club presented by Officer Dan Peters.
Mike was a member of the Sportsman's Club, and I believe he was one of the first disabled hunters that the club took out and did a lot with. Todd's shaking his head yes. So we felt tonight was an opportunity for our club to give back to Mike and the family. So the Sportsman's Club would like to donate $500 to the memorial or the scholarship fund, because the scholarship has been donated to so many people in the community. So thank you.
Before we get to the next part of the ceremony, I would like to ask anybody out there who would like to say something about Mike. Just wave your hand. The mic can come to you, or you can step forward. But anybody want to share any experiences?
Well, this is, I'm Ivor Cameron, and I'm going to mention my two sons, Jeff and Brian. And along with Mike, they had a pretty good sized spotlight. So down by the formerly Holiday store, there was an electric eye on that. And if they put that spotlight on that light, the whole street lights would go off. And you know, it's always stated that sometimes the best policemen are those that tend to always do everything according to maybe the rules of the community. So I just thought, my son Brian is here, and I remember them telling me about that. Or the time that Mike's neighbors on Halloween had a small stack of wood there. And I know Jeff and Brian and Mike, being all blondes, put on black hats, and they had on black outfits also for Halloween. And they went over and tipped over the neighbor's little wood pile. And then, of course, the neighbor heard this, and so he came out and picked up the wood, stacked it in. I think this happened about 3 times before he gave up on restacking that. But so there's just some things that, again, we're all familiar with small towns, and this is kind of the things that, you know, no real damage, but it makes it interesting to tell some stories about Mike, that's for sure. And I'm sure the police officers here, well, they might not be able to tell some of those stories, certainly, but we'll forgive you for that. Thank you.
My name is Todd Angel. Mike and I were friends since 1986. I helped him with a gun so he could go deer hunting and stuff. But, and that was great. But I got to share, because of Ivor, some antics we pulled. It was Mike, myself, Mel McFarland, and Spanky. We decided one day, I had my little store in Taylor's Falls, and we decided one day we were going to be really smart and go shoot the rapids under the St. Croix River here, right underneath the dam. And so we pulled out these floaties, aired them up, went and shot them rapids. We get done going through the rapids, seeing Mike's eyeballs this big, going over them. I think I was on, no, I wasn't even on Taylor's Falls Fire yet, and I don't think he was even on St. Croix yet. But it was priceless seeing Mike do that, along with the other guys. We went and done it a couple more times, and then the boat captain said, "Hey, you guys, you're crazy. I'm going to call the cops." And I'm sitting there saying to myself, well, I'm not a cop, but these other 3 are. Mike's was my best friend. I miss him just like you do. It's kind of cool. I knew he was around today when I stepped out of the store. I know he was there every day. That's it.
Ray Cheshire. I've lived in your community for 14 years. I knew Mike, and I served him in his home. He was a man who never complained. He was a man who was always an encouragement to me. And I went there to encourage him. And he was a man who always encouraged me. That's Mike Seversen.
Others? Very good. Now I'd like to invite Sheriff Pete Johnson to come and read the memorial and then we'll unveil the plaque.
As the youngest son of Joe and Kitty Seversen, Mike grew up with a passion to help others. As a young man, he began working at the Wisconsin Interstate Park, where his love for the outdoors and helping others grew. Over the years, he selflessly served on St. Croix Falls Fire Department, Luck Police Department, St. Croix Falls Police Department, the Ski Patrol, and the Polk County Sheriff's Department. While on duty in 1991, in an effort to protect others, he was shot, injuring his spinal cord and leaving him completely paralyzed. Mike's deep faith in God was evidenced in his persistent love for life, sense of humor, optimistic outlook, and care in serving his community. His physical limitations never stopped him from protecting and serving the community he loved. In his optimistic resolve, it became his mission to encourage and inspire others, especially those dealing with paralysis. For the next 23 years, he continued to be active in the community, even while confined to his wheelchair. He remained a Polk County Deputy, and he spoke at D.A.R.E events, reminding young people that choices they made would have a significant impact on their lives and the lives of others. He was an active member of the St. Croix Falls Planning Commission and helped to make this park a reality.
Thank you, Sheriff. In recognition of Mike's tireless and noble service to this community, this area is proclaimed into perpetuity Deputy Mike Seversen Memorial Overlook Park. And I ask the family to come and remove the shroud from the plaque. And at the same time, we're taking the shroud off the sign, and which makes it very clear to everyone that visits where they're at. Thank everyone who contributed and donated to this. Thank you, family, for Mike, and we will cherish this park. So, thanks, everybody. Have a great evening and weekend.